catch the shock and awe and find out the hard way.
Tough love, huh? So, okay, I think I got two more questions, then I'm gonna let you roll with it. The Luciferian conspiracy. What was that all about, in your words?
The Luciferian conspiracy was the one drop of blood that they needed to clean up the great debauchery, as Bobby Hemmett called it. And the Lucifer, meaning the enlightened, the one that can see, the aware, the illuminated one, the one who's not diet woke, but fully woke. The illuminated one becomes a Luciferian by definition of the word. And the Luciferian conspiracy is an agreement that two or more people who put together, they made an effort to accomplish the agreement. And to us, the agreement would be considered criminal. So for all of us who've been feeling the pains of this doctrine of white supremacy, which is a military laid out strategy to dominate, conquer us, and make us forfeit our birthright, that's the conspiracy, right? The one who can see the conspiracy is the one they classify as Lucifer. Any one of them. It's not an exclusive term to one individual. So when they use it in the Bible, oh, Lucifer, son of the morning, they ain't even talking to Lucifer. They talking to his mama, because it say she was going to exalt her stars above the stars of heaven. What's the stars of heaven? The Orionos. So when you look at the sky, what's above Orion? Ursa. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, we call it Big Dipper, Little Dipper.
Right.
Right? That's the only thing above. So whoever it is, Mama Bear and Baby Bear.
Mama Bear, Baby Bear.
Right? So who is the one they call the rebellious woman? Mary. What the fuck did she do? Right? She saw that it was fit for her to make one that could rival the rest of the guys without the need of the seed of the man, taking us back to the beginning, parthenogenesis, right, and immaculate conception. And she got to get permission from Earth for him to be an earthborn. She got to get a permission from Prime Creator to create the soul. Once she get them two creations, then all she got to do is use the power of will. We are so underestimating our own power of will. That's why we so freely give up our willpower to others to take control of.
So how do people learn to not, pretty much give up their willpower? Like what would you suggest that they start doing?
Do what you know is right, and don't change your mind just because somebody disagreed with you. That's when you surrender in your will. When you know that you shouldn't be sending your child to public school, but everybody else doing it, so you doing it, you're giving your willpower to somebody else to use. Right? When you know your vote don't mean shit, and you go down there and cast a goddamn survey, right? So hoping you win something on a coupon, and you know that shit don't count. It's not a secret the people don't elect the president, because they tell you they got to wait for the electoral vote, which is controlled by the electoral college.
That's
before
right.
Before the electoral college is seated, they know what all of their vote is before they even give them a seat. They know if they vote Democrat or Republican before they ever have polls for the people to go do their survey.
And usually when they actually elect a person, it's because that person is already in the loop with them to be able to carry out whatever vision that they foresee, or, wherever the ball is rolling at that moment.
Look, to even be a candidate, you're in the loop. But to determine the vote is determined by electors. Electors is the electoral college. The electoral college is the one seating the president. Who is these motherfuckers and where they come from? And why do they got to cast a vote separate from the popular vote when the popular vote should carry the state? Popular vote don't carry the state. The electoral vote carry the state.
That's like some old socialist type of shit, because that means the small minority of people have more power than the great minority.
Right, but here's the thing. You're going to find this statement in the history books, and the statement says we must maintain the appearance of an adversarial system in order to maintain the system. Remember, most people don't know that it used to be the Democratic Republic Party and there was one party.
Right.
Most people don't know about the Whig Party. They don't know about the Commonwealth Party. They don't know about the Confederate Party was a legitimate party. They don't know about that stuff.
So when the master teacher, this is going to another bill. When the master teacher was teaching us about the Yamasee Native American Washita Creek Nation, and he was trying to get us involved in identifying ourselves with that particular school of thought. How does that relate to now and what we should be doing?
So remember, Baba didn't just take us through one school of thought.
That's right.
We went through Islam, the 3 degrees, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. We went through the orders of Melchizedek. We went through our Egyptian orders. We went through our Nuwabian shrine orders. In order to put all of these orders together, he has to be a grand potentate, which means the one who creates the orders in order to raise the blind, deaf, and dumb. He got to be authentic with it. You know, so going through a school of thought without taking a side, looking at it objectively, gives you the ability to see what's really going on over here. So whatever school of thought he took us through, it was for us to see it so that when it come back up, we can recognize it. The way that they had us before, we was on one school of thought and one school of thought only. Go to school, go to church, get a good education, get a good job, and die. That was it. Now we're looking at different ideas, expanding the mind. When the mind started to expand, once some motherfucker hears some shit that he didn't know before and he know it now, he can't unlearn that shit.
Yeah.
So all of the schools of thought was to give you an inside look from the outside of what's going on in the degree. He looking at it literally from what we call the third eye perspective, as like remote viewing the structure, the layout, the cause and effect potentialities within the order in order to teach you how to rise above it. That's what's the catalyst behind Nuwapu.
You said that's the catalyst. You said that's the catalyst behind Nuwabian?
Behind Nuwapu.
Mm.
The sound, right, reason, and science. You're going through all them different schools, but you remain a Nuwapian from the Nuwabian Hebrew, the Islamic, the Nubian Islamic Hebrews, through the Holy Tabernacle Ministries, through the Egyptian Church of Christ, all the way down, you still was a Nuwabian from start to finish. You was learning Nuwapu the whole time through all of those, but you was living the culture that they're trying to impose on you because you can feel that's not your culture. When you over here in Brooklyn, New York, and you trying to identify with a Saudi Arabian doctrine, right? Soon as you put on Jollibee and sandals in December, you automatically know this doesn't go to this land. This is a disconnect.
Hell yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn. I said it's cold as hell. Like, bro, we need a snorkel out this bitch and some Timbs. Shit.
Now look, you take an Eskimo out of Alaska to Saudi Arabia, that motherfucker not putting on none of his shit. He ain't putting that big furry ass coat, them big furry ass boots, or them big furry ass pants. He'll just be standing butt booty ass naked in Saudi Arabia. And he'll know right then, I can't be from here. This is a disconnect because I can't wear my gear. That's how they know where they belong on the land. The ones who belong in the warm climate to the cold climate. Nature already got us weeded out. We just ain't paying attention to how it's moving. These is what all of the degrees in the schools of thought that Malachi sent us through. This is how you use that to your advantage. All of the critical thinking you see me doing was inspired by the Nation of Islam, the Nubians, and the Moorish Science Temple and the Christian Church. This is where my original teachings stem from.
Right.
Right. But I had an organic teaching that was separate from all of that. We call it today the voodoo. I was studying the voodoo my entire life without even knowing I was studying it, because you taught it by masters that can't tell you they teaching it to you.
Why is that?
Because you have to be able to have the right frequency in order to tie into your orisha, or some people say your lower, right? And then you have to make that connection yourself as part of self-discovery. Man, know thyself. It's part of your shadow work, because you can't find you looking outside in the world. You can only find you inside of you, because that's where you live at.
Right.
Right. So they can't tell you who you is. That's ego gratification. That's the ego development. But what they can do is they can give you a lesson that they're not telling you is a lesson that's part of the voodoo conjure for balancing out the laws of nature. I didn't understand half of that shit when I was a baby that I understand now when I look back on, and I know why it's stuck out in my memory when I'm dangling upside down here and my big mama say, "Look at here, Shelley, you look like you got the bearing." Right? I'm wondering why, I'm still remembering as a child, why the fuck she got me upside down dangling me by my ankle. And I wasn't a year old.
Wow. So from your perspective, what should we be doing now today? What is the things that you feel like we should be concentrating on now today?
Separating from this system so this motherfucker can fall. Don't nothing else matter. Because until this system fall, it's going to make more and more suffering for the innocent when it do. And it's going to make it longer to reboot the new system.
Right, it's like you're still stuck in the matrix.
Yeah. They still tied to the paper chain of contract law. Remember, it tell you in the Christian doctrine that he didn't come to free you from anything but the law. If you don't have no law, there is no sin. Paul talked about that shit with his half a fag ass.
So separating from the system. So what's your perspective on people who, I'm going to just say in the conscious community, I'm going to narrow it down, even though you may have a perspective on the greater whole, but more so brothers and sisters that's in the conscious community that still support our children, the younger gods and goddesses, going to be educated at the public school systems.
What's the question, though? I don't get the question.
What is your perspective on them still sending them to the same institutions, the same educational institutions that perpetuate the system?
Those institutions are toxic environments, and they also where they be watching your child to figure out who's going to get abducted next. If you're sending your child there, you ain't too sharp of what's going on. They're using that as a slave training system. It's all Pavlovian response Skinner box training now.
Oh shit! Not the classical and operant conditioning.
That's what it's all
about. I already know. I done had these conversations for years about Pavlovian conditioning, or what they may call classical conditioning, and then, you know, like you were saying about B.F. Skinner, he ended up refining it with the rat, and creating or pretty much designing the operant conditioning techniques.
Mm-hmm.
So what about for the parents who feel like, hey, I'm not in the circumstance to be able to homeschool, and they don't feel like there are enough schools.
This shit ain't that hard. Motherfuckers be trying to make it hard. It ain't that hard. All of the sisters that got jobs and that's working, this one sister that's not working, that's sitting at home on her ass eating bonbons, watching soap operas, that could be helping teach the kids if y'all gave her a responsibility that she can handle. That's awesome, made up shit. We got every excuse to fail, but we find very few excuses to succeed. The justification of failure is in such abundance that the desire to succeed is so undermined that we would rather fall on the foolishness of the justification than strap on our motherfucking big boy panties or big girl panties, big boy drawers, and handle that. The shit ain't even hard as you think it is, but it's hard because you haven't tried it yet. You gotta be able to make this motherfucking reality be into your will. That's how you know if you're using your willpower or if somebody using your willpower. If your willpower got you sending your child somewhere else to get educated, you are giving your power away by giving your child away. You undermining yourself without ever knowing you undermining yourself.
And you know, it's crazy that you say that, because I just had this conversation with a few sisters the other day, and that was one of the main, I'm gonna say, excuses. How are you gonna send your child to school? When do you have time to? I mean, how are you gonna not send the children to school? When do you have time to pretty much educate them if you got to go out and work?
Education is an ongoing process. Whether you work or not as the parent, it's your responsibility to educate them better than the system. The system is only training them to be a subject to the system. If you want them to rise up so they don't have to go through the shit you do, you make a way. They looking for excuses, man. All they
make a way for everything else. That's what I told them. Y'all make a way for everything else.
They got time to sit in the motherfucking weave shop for 8 hours getting that motherfucking weave weaved in there. Why you can't figure out how to get 8 hours a week of actual teaching time to the child when you sit in the 8-hour micro braid session, zillion session? I just seen girls have to go home, go to sleep, get up in the morning, come back for another 8 hours to get them motherfucking zillions.
That's crazy. I watched my sisters and them go sit 2, 3, 4 hours just to get their nails and their feet done.
Okay, so if you can get your nails and your feet done, you can find time for your child. Look, all of the women that I personally know, even when their child not at school, they trying to teach them something, or they trying to put them around somebody to teach them something. I don't know none.
Okay, so go ahead, finish that thought, and I'm gonna read you what I don't know what CPS is, but the brother Matthew.
Child Protective Services.
Huh?
That's Child Protective Services.
Okay, Child Protective Services. Now, I grew up in homeschool, and I just had this conversation with a few of the women. It is not illegal to homeschool your children. You can sign your children out. I have done it. And you fill out the paperwork, and they give you 2 options. Either you can sign them up for a homeschool program, whereas the program keeps up with the school system itself, or you can decide what books you want to teach the child and prepare the child for whatever test that the school has organized or created for them, and get them up to speed with the test. But we're not saying take them out of school and participate. No, I'm not saying. Let me just finish. I'm not saying take them out of school and then go to jail because you're not doing the educational program. Period. Now that does happen, because when one of my ex-mates, when I took her son out of school, she didn't finish filling out the paperwork. So it was like he was still enrolled in school and he was missing days. But once when the paperwork got, because he was autistic, once when the paperwork got completed, I put together pretty much the same school system that we had in the tab. And I was able to educate him in Wabic and bring him up to speed. When he finally went back to school, he graduated in a regular class and went to college.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason they don't want you to homeschool. Look, the curriculum our 12th graders get here is like 5th or 6th grade in Japan. It's like 7th or 8th grade in Germany. Look, for those who want to do further investigation on the educational system, there's a lady named Charlotte Isserby on YouTube who was the director under the No Child Left Behind program of the Department of Education. And study the educational system they're telling you to send your child to. You have an inalienable right to educate your child and not participate in the system. They can't interfere with that right unless you agree to allow them to interfere. That's
Right.
if you're a sovereign. That's if you know who you are. If you don't know who you are, you better follow their rules to the letter till you figure this shit out.
So, all right. So, this person, Ross777, and shout out to V Money, Walakum Mashub, to the brother. But it says, can we do a declaration to claim our organic rights to not deal with contracts? I took mine out.
Listen to the sentence. Read the sentence again.
He says, can we do a declaration to claim
a declaration
to claim our organic rights to not deal with contracts? I took mine out.
Okay, now a declaration, you don't need, a sovereign doesn't need permission to make a declaration. That's the first thing you understand about no big eyes and no little U's. The government ain't bigger than you and you ain't bigger than the government, right? The government here is to serve the needs of the people. There's nowhere in the needs of the people do you have to make a declaration as to who you is. That's all in the corporate structure of bookkeeping. If you don't know what lane you fall in, you can easily get trapped up. So in the oral tradition, because we got to use our traditions, our ways to overthrow their system. So an oral declaration in the public domain, any social media platform, is called an archivable format that has been already ruled on as a viable means for public notice. So if you put public notice and you tell the motherfuckers you rescind all contracts and exercising your sovereign rights and identify who you are as a sovereign and not your straw man. That's why I tell everybody when you go through stages of awakening, your name doesn't change. Because who you are is changing too. Every 7 years, you got a whole different cellular makeup. And that's a whole lifetime for the past you. At 7 years old, the you that was born is no longer here. But the new that's about to go into the next 7 years has arrived.
Right. So this says, Monday for short say, my declaration is what I say. Okay, so can you explain to the brothers and sisters the meaning of a sovereign and how that applies? Because I think that, you know, from my experience of speaking with people about it, it's misconstrued.
It is. So remember, the Dred Scott case said we had no rights, that a so-called white person is bound to respect. A white person in law is a free white person in law, meaning they are some kind of royal or noble class, right? If you are an organic being, then you are not under anybody's jurisdiction that's not in agreement with your claim. The problem is the clans don't know who they are, so we can't come together like Transformers fast enough. It's moving, but it's moving slow as hell.
So in the redemption manuals, how to become a secure party creditor, how does that relate in your perspective?
Okay, so in the redemption process as a secured party creditor, you are participating in asking permission from a legal fiction, which is a corporation masquerading as a government, to allow you to be an active agent on their behalf. That's what that is. You making a contract on a higher level. That's all.
Is
this
that
time going into it knowingly and willfully, because the inferior can never validate a superior's position.
Okay.
So you be made an imbecile in law, a Dred Scott slave, 3/5 compromise, when you don't know that you're the one supposed to be telling the system how to work. You're supposed to get with a general consensus of like-minded individuals and make a public notice to the grievance and offer the solution. If the solution not available, you make it known that this is a fact-finding mission. Anybody got a solution to this grievance, feel free to solve the problem. You put it in the public domain, it becomes a standing declaration. So now the more of y'all do it or understand what's being done and make allegiance to be on one page with restoring the air, the land, and the water, then you can break free from the legal fiction. You got to exercise your superior right as an organic being to clean Earth up. That's all. Once you understand that part, you don't need to understand nothing else, because the rest of it going to automatic. It's going to go into automatic pilot mode in your psyche. You're going to then begin to remember why you came here and who you are and how you're going to fix the problem from your part.
Right. And that makes all the damn sense in the world. So with that being said, another question is, because a lot of people that I was in contact with a few years ago was, on the sovereignty paperwork hard, and they was relating it more to property ownership, like land. How does that relate? How does the owning property relate to being sovereign?
The only people that own property in truth, see, you don't own property, you lease property.
You're damn right, because you got to still keep paying.
Right, because the property taxes is to ensure that you continue to keep the lease up. So you got to find out who holder in due course is. That's what you need to be in order to be a landowner. If you're not holder in due course, nobody has that deed, because nobody can actually sell the land. They've been running the whole mortgage fraud for years, defrauding the people on how mortgages is done. They're using your mortgage to take out massive loans in your name. And they already paid for the house. You did, with your signature. But we don't know this shit. We don't know about all of the bills they passed to systematically allow their legal fiction to assume a superior jurisdiction.